everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels. Now, as always, folks, before we go ahead and get started today, just a few things. First of all, as always, I'm going to be including the link here for the FDA Executive Summary there in the description box, as well as the link to the petition to shut down the Judge Rotenberg Center. I'm going to start off right away. Warning. The topic we're going to be covering today is probably going to produce quite a bit of ranting. So, just wanted to cover that real quick. Also, what we are getting ready to discuss today is kind of graphic. It's definitely not for children. So please, if you are watching with young children around, you're at home today, please go ahead and use your headphones. Okay? Alright, so as you guessed, we are still on the FDA Executive Summary for April the 24th, 2014. And this, of course, folks, because we've been going a while here, if you're new, this is a part of the FDA hearings to ban the GED device, the device that causes harmful skin shocks, 10 times more powerful than a police taser, being used at the Judge Rotenberg Center. And it was completed this summary on April the 24th, 2014. So today, folks, we are moving on to 4.4.3.2, physical restraint. Physical restraint that is not utilized as punishment technique as noted above has been used to treat SIB and aggressive behavior. Remember, guys, SIB is an acronym for self-injurious behavior. Thus, physical restraint, which prevents the individual from carrying out SIB or aggression, is technically not considered as punishment. Yeah, tell that to the one being strapped down. Minshawi, 2008. Restraint as applied to people with intellectual disabilities refers to any actions to limit the movement of an individual. Because restraint can be highly restrictive, poses a risk of injury, and can result in death, its use must be minimized, reduced, and eliminated if possible. Let me read that sentence again. Think about the Judge Rotenberg Center as I read it. Because restraint can be highly restrictive, poses a risk of injury, and can result in death, its use must be minimized, reduced, and eliminated if possible. Physical restraint can range from complete immobilization on a bed, like in the case of Andre McCollins, for example, to limiting the mobility of specific body parts. There is great variation in the type of restraint used to manage self-injury. Mechanical restraints, for example, can range in form of their restrictiveness and degree of restrictiveness, from almost complete immobilization using objects such as beds or chairs, to use of wrist cuffs that bring the SIB under stimulus control, but which do not restrict movement. Mechanical forms of restraint have received the greatest attention in the literature on self-injury, and some epidemiological studies report on the prevalence of use. Population studies of people with intellectual disabilities and challenging behavior in one health region in the UK in the early mid to mid 1980s showed that approximately 1.3%, 75 individuals of people with intellectual disabilities who self-injured wore protective devices or mechanical restraints. Murphy et al. 1993, Olivier et al. 1987. Arm splints were the most commonly used device. These people had severe SIB, were generally younger, and had greater sensory, cognitive, and physical impairments than other people with SIB. They also tended to present multiple forms of challenging behavior. The use of physical restraint presents a higher risk of injury and possibility of death. However, exact rates of injury or death from the use of physical restraints remains unreported. Restraint usage should be one of the most important, closely managed areas of clinical practice in behavioral services. The use of restraint has a rather small risk of injury to the recipients with intellectual disabilities, but this risk nonetheless remains present. Okay, they say it's a small risk. It's not. I am sad to say that by and large, a lot of the names that we read during the Disability Day of Mourning, a lot of those causes of death do actually have some form of restraint going on. It's more prevalent than what they want you to know. They always tell you it's a last resort. More often than not, it's the first thing, at the very least, that schools tend to use. A lot of schools go immediately to restraint when there's problem behaviors. Right now, they don't necessarily strap them down to a table, but what they do is basically put them in a room that is the size of a closet and lock the door. They call them isolation rooms or isolation cells. I think in their minds, they think that it is a more humane way than immobilizing the child completely. But at the end of the day, it's just as horrifying. If you want to know more about the isolation cells and isolation rooms, I do have a video about that on my channel. Okay, moving on. That was less ranting than I expected, considering the rest of this document. But moving on. 4.4.3.3 Sensory Integration Training, also called SIT. This technique is based on the theory that a dysfunction. Can they stop using the word dysfunction? My God. Just because my brain and the way I handle sensory operates different than yours does not automatically make it a dysfunction. God, I hate people. Moving on. In sensory processing contributes learning and behavioral challenges in individuals with disabilities. The goal of sensory integration treatment is stimulation of neural processes involving in receiving, modulation, and integrating sensory input. As a result of such stimulation, it's hypothesized that the nervous system begins to properly process sensory stimuli, which in turn leads to improvement in adaptive functioning and decreases maladaptive behaviors. Okay, what planet are you on? Okay, so this is the idea, folks, that it's the idea of desensitization. Desensitization means that they will expose you a little bit at a time to a certain sensory that causes you issues. Hoping that you will adapt to being around that sensory stimuli so that it's no longer causing you problems and you act normally when you're around that stimuli. Here's the problem. That's not how it works. Remember when I told you many videos back that that's not how sensory works. No matter how many times you put me under a fluorescent light, it's still going to hurt my ears just the same as it did as when I was 5 years old. The only difference now is I know how to mask when I'm around fluorescent lighting so that the people around me do not know that that light above me is causing me a headache and is messing with my sight. So, just because you are working on desensitization doesn't mean that that pain that the sensory issue causes or the irritation is going away. It just means that I learn that me freaking out because I'm in a great deal of pain makes everybody look me like I'm a freaking sideshow circus freak. And therefore I must endure, keep my mouth shut, so that everybody else can be comfortable around me. Sounds great, doesn't it? Now, I will say one thing for desensitization techniques. It does allow me, it doesn't lessen the pain in any way, shape, or form, but it does allow me to still kind of think through it, for less of a better term. I still know what I'm expected to do. However, exposure to whatever is causing me issues, I can only do it for a certain amount of time. So I figured I'd just go over that. Moving on. A vast body of literature exists that addresses outcomes, efficacy, or effectiveness of the sensory integration approach. For example, Dimes 1994 compiled reviews of 57 outcome studies published between 1972 and 1992 that evaluated interventions based on sensory integration theory, which yielded equivocal results largely due to study design limitations. More recently, Vargas and Camilli 1998 reported a meta-analysis of 32 SIT studies across various diagnoses. The review demonstrated that well-designed, rigorous studies demonstrated that SIT did not benefit individuals receiving intervention. Despite the availability of outcome studies published over 30 years, evidence of the effectiveness of this intervention remains inconclusive. Gee, I wonder why. Desensitization, or as they say, sensory integration, can only go so far. We can learn to mask around these sensory issues so that it appears that we're doing well around them, but that only goes so far. What a lot of parents have done, and they've actually had success with, is use the noise canceling headphones and other aids of a similar nature when there's sensory issues in play, and they've had a great deal of success. So, that's usually what I recommend. Moving on. One popular SIT intervention is the use of weighted vests. Yes, I've brought this up before. It's kind of like the noise canceling headphones for touching issues. I'll get into that more in a minute. Weighted vests are close-fitting garments in which small weights are placed in pockets or interior slits, which provide a proprioceptive and tactile stimulation to the wearer. This stimulation is intended to have multiple benefits, including a decrease in problem behavior. Stevenson Carter, 2009. However, more recently, Davis et al. 2013 suggested that the use of the weighted vest does not appear to decrease challenging behavior. Gotta love everyone who wants to throw in their opinion. Here's my experience, folks. I have never had to use a weighted vest. I do, however, use weighted blankets. It provides a sense of safety. It's not so much about sensory stimulation as, for some odd reason, it gives me a sense of safety to kind of have that weight wrapped around me. So, it does actually manage to calm me down. And if I can get something like that before I go into a snap, and I have to sit there for a minute with that wrapped around me and probably listening to some music, it does actually calm me down to the point where I can rationally think. Sometimes have long out loud conversations with myself while wearing that blanket so I can calm down and start thinking coherently again. I actually do recommend the vests. Mad Squirrel, when her and I were talking about it on Zod's channel, actually said they really work well for her son as well. Okay, moving on. Other types of SIT have included the use of daily tactile and vestibular stimulation with relatively good success in reducing SIB and aggressive behavior. Wills and Smith, 1983. Mindfulness training, oh God. 4.4.34. The mindfulness procedure is based upon the book Meditation on the Soles of the Feet, Singh et al. 2003, which is a meditation technique which requires the individual to shift their awareness and attention from anger-producing situations to a neutral point on the body, the soles of the feet. The authors report a single case report of an adult with intellectual disability whose aggression precluded community placement that was eliminated using this technique. The individual remained aggression-free for about up to 1 year following the remission to a group home. Individuals with moderate to severe levels of intellectual disability appear to be less responsive to this procedure, as it is difficult for individuals with more compromised intellectual function to comprehend the verbal instructions necessary for successful completion of this technique. My God, first of all, how possibly arrogant and ableist can you possibly be? If the meditation is not working for you, it's probably because you're too stupid to understand. That's what I'm getting from that. Well, newsflash, Mr. Study Guy. I have an IQ of 186. I am extremely intelligent, as well as being an autistic, and I can tell you right now that contemplating my feet is not going to do anything to calm me down. In fact, by trying to do that and not succeeding, I would become increasingly more angry. See, there are many types of meditation one can engage in. There is a form that I use where I like to use beads because the sensory as well as repetitious words calms me down. Contemplating my feet, on the other hand, or trying to focus on a single part of my body, clear your mind. It's just going to get me more and more angry. So, if you're going to try to use mindfulness, if you're going to be trying to use meditation, explore all the different kinds there are and find the one that actually works for you. Don't let a doctor tell you that you're just too stupid to understand and therefore it didn't work. Look into it more and find the method that actually works for you. Just wanted to put that out there. Contingent exercise 4.4.3.5, generally considered to be a form of behavioral treatment. Contingent exercise or effort is a method which requires the individual to exhibit a change in behavior as a consequence of their SIB and aggressive behavior. Kasdan, 1975. One type of contingent effort has been applied in individuals with severe emotional disturbances is so-called contingent exercise. Contingent physical exercise consists of having individuals engage in brief physical activity immediately after the occurrence of the target behavior. This procedure originally was designed for the use with aggressive and disruptive behaviors, but has recently been applied to the treatment of SIB in individuals who have autism and intellectual disabilities. Fox and Garrido, 2007, Kong et al. 2001. Luce et al. 1980 utilized the contingent in two single-subject experiments. The contingent exercise required standing up and sitting on the floor 5 to 10 times, contingent on inappropriate behavior, including aggressive actions and aggressive comments. In both experiments, aggression was consistently reduced in frequency via the use of contingent exercise. The authors concluded that contingent exercise was a more effective behavioral procedure, notably when other forms of differential reinforcement of other behaviors failed. Here's the problem with this, and it was actually brought up to me on my last video by one of my commenters. The problem with contingent exercise as being a punishment for targeted behaviors is people are going to view it as a punishment. So they're going to be far less likely to engage in exercise of their own volition. When they were talking about obesity and food as a reward, exercise as punishment, Well, think about that for a minute. What is that saying to an autistic who's extremely literal? It's saying, if you do good, you get to have all this food. If you're under a food deprivation program, you are going to be eating enough food to pack for the winter. When you associate exercise with punishment, is a person still likely to keep carrying on that exercise? No, they're not. They're not. So there's inherent issues with using this. Although it does help with aggression and rage, I can say that for myself simply because I do it of my own volition, not as a punishment, but it does help me deal with emotions and things twice a day. As soon as I get up in the morning and right before bed, I hit them again. Well, I hit the weights again, sorry. I needed to clarify that considering what we're talking about. So, if you present something like exercise after you do something bad, it gives the perception of exercise is bad, it's for people being punished. Extra food is for when you do good. So, this pretty much sets a kid up for overeating and not wanting to exercise. You see what I mean? Yeah, it's no good. It sets up things in your head that who knows how many years it takes to get that out. Okay, moving on. Muscle relaxation. The use of progressive muscle relaxation training is a key component to behavioral treatments, notably systematic desensitization therapy. We talked about that a little bit earlier, which is used in a variety of psychiatric conditions, including anxiety and phobic disorders, and as a stress reduction technique. The use of muscle relaxation to reduce aggressive behavior in mentally handicapped patients was first reported by Lindsay and Beatty in 1986 and subsequently by McPhail and Shamove in 1989. Feng To and Chan 2000 reported a modest reduction of 15% of aggressive behavior was achieved via the use of muscle relaxation and concluded overall the literature on the outcomes of muscle relaxation training reducing aggressive behaviors is inconclusive, particularly in individuals with limited intellectual ability and developmental disabilities, presumable due to their lack of cognitive capacity to understand and carry out the procedures required for progressive muscle relaxation. There they go again. Oh my God. Can you be more condescending, ableist? I'm just going to say, you're a prick. You're a real prick. You're just a winner. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to rant. Okay. We're going to do this. Okay. First of all, okay, if you are a person whose mind is going a million miles an hour all day, every day, as I myself am, I'm just saying that trying to gently, basically try to relax one muscle at a time is not going to work. I'm not even going to be able to focus on it. I got a million things running in my mind at once. That is not going to do anything. Number two, this idea, and I don't know where it comes from, that if what we're doing isn't working, it's the fault of the person with the disability, not the fact that what we came up with as an intervention, it sucks and has no grounding of any kind. Yeah, it just sucks as an intervention. But you would rather blame the patient than blame yourself for choosing a shitty intervention. It's just a fact. Now, some folk can do the whole let the slow muscle relaxation, and maybe it does help them. But by and large, it does nothing then. Once again, if we can't do it as due to the fact of all we have going on in our head, we just end up beating ourselves up over it, and we just become either A, depressed, or B, more angry. So, moving on. I hope I never find any of these people in real life. I'm gonna give them an earful. Okay. Snoezelen room. A form of multi-module sensory stimulation is provided in Snoezelen rooms, which are multi-sensory environments that have been used to improve behavior and quality of life of individuals with intellectual disabilities. These rooms typically contain an array of multi-sensory equipment that provides stimuli in several modes: olfactory, aromatherapy diffuser, and assorted scents, scented magic markers, vibratory and tactile, assorted vibrators and body massagers. Did I just read what I think I did? I'm gonna need a minute. Okay, I'm gonna try to get that out of my head now. Serotonin beanbag with vibrations synchronized to music, auditory, electronic nature sounds generator, complete stereo system, and visual. Laser light show devices, rotating disco balls, interactive light panels with mirrors, interactive fiber optic fountain, fiber optic curtains. In addition, there may be a number of rockers, vestibulator swing devices with a bolster swings, net swings, and double form sitters beds and mats. The floor of a Snoezelen room is carpeted, the walls are painted in various luminescent colors, and music is played softly in the background. I'm going to tell you now, this is my definition of hell. What they're describing is my definition of hell. Holy, oh my God, this is my definition of hell. I just thinking about possibly being in that room makes me want to break things. Holy, it's like my freaking nightmare. Okay, let's read the rest of this real quick, and then there's going to be a bit of a rant. Singh and colleagues 2004 investigated the effects of the Snoezelen room for treating SIB and aggressive behavior in 15 adults with severe or profound intellectual disabilities during and after being treated with activities of daily living training program, vocational skills training, and a Snoezelen room. Both aggression and self-injury were lowest when the individuals were in the Snoezelen room. The difference in the levels before and after Snoezelen were statistically different with self-injury but not with aggression. Okay, let's get into this. What they described to me just a moment ago is my idea of sensory hell. So, they're talking about throwing in random scents. It's one thing if I'm the one who's choosing the scents that are going to be coming out of the diffuser. It's entirely another if they're the ones who keep throwing out different kind of scents too fast for my head to process. Scented magic markers? Are you kidding me? The smell of magic markers as a kid used to make me feel sick. When they talk about vibratory and tactile, the fact that the first word out was assorted vibrators and body massagers. I about lost my shit. That is extremely disturbing to me. We're talking about people who are supposed to be reviewing the treatment of kids. Kids! Kids! How's this even remotely okay to even mention as an intervention of any goddamn kind? What the hell? Moving on. The laser light show devices, rotating disco balls, and interactive light panels with mirrors, interactive fiber optic fountain, and curtains is my idea of a goddamn nightmare. Now, I can handle these things to a certain extent. I can go to a concert where there's laser lights. A single disco ball is not going to disturb me. When you have all of this going on at the same time, fucking kill me. Just fucking take the gun, put it to my head, and kill me. That is how anxiety inducing. God, just thinking about it. Ugh. I'm going to move on. For being autism experts, they sure as hell don't know a whole lot about it, do they? Moving on. This is ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, 4.4.3.8. I'm going to leave this off for tomorrow because I guarantee there is going to be a long-winded rant during all of that. So, I'm going to go ahead and close off for today. Keep this relatively short. So, we don't get that many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from YouTube from time to time. So, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, don't forget to hit the comments. Also, for those new to my channel, please, if you have not already signed the petition to shut down the Judge Rotenberg Center, please click on the description and click on the link. I do appreciate your time this afternoon. Also, if you hear noise in the background, I really apologize about that. My roommates, they're doing things right now. It's pretty early in the day. I know it's usually a bit quieter in the background. But I do appreciate your patience, and we here at Spilling Tea hope you all have a good one. Bye bye.